So this is the meeting of the Ad Hoc Technical Review Committee for Brayton Road Solar. It's to review their preliminary plan and development plan review. I will read aloud. So the development is Brayton Road Solar Preliminary and Development Plan Reviews. Solar large ground array major land development application to build across 3 parcels, approximately 101.4 acres. It's on plat 503, lot 103, and plot 505, lot 101 and 102. The addresses are 390, 394, and 446 Brayton Road. It is all located in our 80 zoning district. So I'm going to go through roll call. Fire Chief Bruce, you want to just say you're here?
There you go. Sorry, I was having a little technical difficulty.
That's
yeah,
okay.
I'm here. Just to let you know, I am having my my fire marshal should be sitting. You might see him behind my shoulder. He might be sitting in, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And Rick Rogers.
Here.
John, the building official. I don't see him here. He might come in later, but I'll say absent as of now. I'm here. Steer Engineering, Kelly.
Here.
Rosemary Eva.
Here.
Susan Gill.
Here.
And I don't see Amanda either, so we'll mark her down as absent. So I hope the applicant has received the agenda. It is to, so we should probably start by the applicant explaining their plan. Bree, can you help him get the dial-in number? Then we'll go over the Steer Engineering review letter and the conditions from the master plan approval. And then we'll hear from the fire department, public works, building, and planning. I thought that would be a good way to go. All right, if you want to go ahead, take the floor, Joe. Do you want to share your screen? You can.
Nick, do you want to open up and then I'll run through the plans?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Nicholas Goodyear. I'm the attorney here on behalf of the applicant. In addition to project engineers Joe Duhamel and Dave Russo from Depreet Engineering. This project had obtained master plan approval by vote August 2019. I would say a significant amount of work has taken place since that date. We've had a pending preliminary plan application, complete submission, submitted into the town for approximately 2 months now, I'd say. It has been reviewed by the town's peer engineer, peer reviewer, and we've responded to comments. I believe Mr. Duhamel will be able to walk us through the project. It's pretty straightforward. And the master plan process was pretty lengthy. We've vetted many of the issues and attended to the conditions that were imposed pretty systematically. So we can review that. And from the procedural and legal perspective, if there's any questions, I can work to address those. I know this is primarily catered to technical aspects of the project, so I'll let the engineers take that.
I'm gonna actually present. Jen, do I have capability to share my screen?
Yes, you
Okay.
should.
I do. Hold on one second. If you could just confirm that you can see the plans, I'd appreciate it.
We can.
Okay, thank you. So this property, it's the same properties that were here during the master plan review process. And since then, we have completed a full class 1 survey of the property. So when we were going through the master plan, that was mostly a class 4 best available information that we're utilizing. The professional wetland biologist has flagged all the wetlands on the site. The applicant is proposing an 18.93 megawatt DC solar project. The access is still located off of Brayton Road in the same location that it was previously shown. Since master plan, the engineering has been completed on the site. We've added a lot more detail. We've done a full hydrology analysis of the site. We've completed soil erosion and sediment control plans and manuals to meet the DM requirements. We've also added a lot more roadway systems throughout the site with turnarounds on the property. So this was all submitted to DEM. DEM completed an initial review, provided us initial engineering comments and the biologist comments from both departments at DEM. The biologist, when he completed his review, flagged some areas of disturbance that were potentially wetlands prior. So there was a farming activity out there that disturbed some of those prior wetlands. That went to the DM Office of Compliance. The applicant spent over the past year working with the Office of Compliance, and they're actually in the process now of restoring those wetland areas, mostly up in this area here. And that's all tied to our wetlands permit. So we actually just responded to another set of comments that they had from the engineering department. Before that violation got resolved, we had to wait to get their second review done. So we've responded to those comments. We actually just recently talked to the engineer. He had 2-3 minor comments that we're working with him on. The biologist is actually on vacation, but he didn't have any comments the second round. So we're expecting to get that DM permit in coming weeks. And I know that the planning staff and had mentioned that the board would want to see that prior to a vote or approval. So we expect to have that prior to, and I'm making the assumption this is more than likely go 2 meetings in front of the board. So we'll more than likely have that before the second meeting. Since the first meeting, since the master plan, the landscape architect has also completed a full landscape plan set, which has been submitted. Kevin Alverson's not here today, but these are the plans that he produced. Kevin was focused on the sensitive areas that were discussed at the master plan level. There was a concern with the view shed from Brayton Road. There was also a concern with the view shed from the butters to the southwest, which is where most of the residential butters are located. And then there was a sensitivity to buffering the land trust system, the land trust land. So Kevin's produced plans to basically on the Brayton Ave area, just infill this field area to create some more buffering, and then create some buffering along the wetland area to fill in some prior cleared areas. So as you pass this system, it'd be very difficult to see in and see any solar from Brayton Road as you're driving by. The buffering along the southwest, we had a pretty substantial buffer in this area, approximately 280 feet, which was increased substantially during the master plan review. The town ordinance only requires 20, so we're well above that existing buffer. So in addition to the existing buffer, Kevin has put a supplemental planting all along the edge of that buffering. And then he did the same along the opposite side of the Algonquin gas line area. Then as you go up to the land trust, he's just basically gone ahead and just created a row of buffering in that area also to shield the solar from the land trust system, which is the walking trail area. We've also, we did receive, we just saw, that was the first time we actually saw that steer farm response letter. I believe it was dated May 11th. We had a initial steer farm review letter from another engineer who I believe left steer engineering. We responded to those comments. We received a letter basically saying that I believe Joe Cardillo left steer engineering. So we contacted steer. Gentleman named Kevin was overseeing the project that time. He said he was going to look at it. We never heard back. He said it should be all set. So we did get that most recent steer engineering letter. It seems like a lot of those comments are easily addressable. So we plan on addressing those. There wasn't too much in there of concern. And we also, I created this plan just for the meeting tonight, just to give a little bit clearer perspective of our layout on top of the aerial. So it's a little easier to see the buffering of the system that we provided. The dark green on this plan is all the existing wooded areas or areas to be untouched to remain as is. So there's the significant buffering on the southwest area. The blue areas are where the detention ponds are being proposed. And then this plan makes it a little easier to see the roadway system through the site. We have met with Algonquin Gas Company. They have issued a letter, which was we submitted with the file. We met with them on site. We worked with them and an underground radar penetrating company to locate the depths of the gas lines where we'd be crossing. So all that work was done in advance. At this point, their letter just states that we need to submit final construction plans to them, and they need to be involved in the process, the construction process, which will occur when that stage gets here. That's a general summary of the project. The only last item I want to add is we are requesting one waiver for a traffic analysis, just because this type of facility doesn't produce any traffic once constructed. The only traffic in this site would be periodic maintenance vehicles, landscape type vehicles, a pickup truck with somebody inspecting the electrical work on the site. So it's a very, very low producing traffic use. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that anyone may have.
Dave, let me add to that. At all points of entry, there's going to be a gated access with a Knox box for anyone entering or leaving the site. So
that's a great point. There is a gate at the entrance for access with the Knox locks. We also during the master plan review, the fire department requested, because there's going to be a gate going across the gas line. We did put a fence going across the gas line. We put a gate at both ends of the gas line. So this can actually be used as secondary access if needed in case of emergency.
By whom? Who will use those gas line access points?
It's just in case of emergency, or if the gas line company has to get up and down the gas line for maintenance, they'd be able to travel up and down the gas line easement.
Okay. Well, that's what I was wondering, because it doesn't look like it's accessible to any road or anything. So that's why I was wondering if it's strictly for the gas company access.
It's just it's a cleared area, so it is accessible by vehicle if needed. So if the gas line had to get in there, they can traverse up and down the gas line. I mean, or if it was ever needed for a real fire safety emergency, they could use it if they needed to.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It's probably like a power line, how the clearings around a power line are.
Very similar, correct.
I just wanted to note that the yellow areas where it says, I can't read it too well here on the screen, but I believe it talks about selective tree clearing. That seems to be the not exactly misleading, but I mean, you're going to take out every tree that's more than 6 feet tall, which just means that there's going to be no trees. It's just going to be like little saplings.
Sure, there. I mean, that is the area
Yeah.
that the landscape architect is putting in the supplemental planting, but there are a lot of instances in those areas where you get those like low-lying pine trees or low-lying evergreens that they don't technically need to be removed. So there's no purpose to remove them if they're going to help with the visual buffering.
Sure.
It's hard to, without going and logging every tree within that area. So that's something that, you know, they'll kind of look at in the field as they go through that area, but it does benefit the project to try to keep some of the low-lying vegetation, even if it's bushes and low-lying vegetation like that, you could try to leave some of that.
I mean, I would like to know what it would look like from the property line, but then again, there's no property owners. I mean, there's no houses or anything I see. It all butts open space anyway. So I guess there's no issue with that. Does anyone else have
I just had another question. I just so you know, I'm the planning board chairman, just so you're where the questions are coming from. So the top road where it goes horizontal. I just wondering why you didn't have the vertical road continue up to that last section. I didn't know if the fire department would have any issues with that, or if you just plan on it being grass to be accessible, but that whole top section then isn't accessible.
You speaking right here, right here.
Right. I was just wondering why you didn't continue the road up.
I mean, that'll be accessible. It'll be a grass area, so you'll still be able to drive on it. You know, even along the perimeter of the solar site, you'll be able to drive on the perimeter of the solar site. We always try to reduce the roads as much as possible. There's equipment pads at the end of these turnarounds. So there's no equipment up here. So we've provided access to where the equipment is.
Well, that would be my question, I guess, from a public safety for the fire chief, then if those kind of situations are adequate, I guess, because there's no turnaround. I'm just thinking not fire so much, but I mean, injuries or anything like that, if he feels like that is adequate for safety issues. I don't know if the chief could respond to that. You there? I don't know if he's there.
I am.
Oh, yeah. Did you get the question? Sorry.
So I was just sitting, not really, I was talking to the fire marshal about about the first thing that you talked about. So one thing that we've asked for in the past with other solar farms is access around the perimeter of the solar farm for any firefighting that we might have to do. Another thing that we required in at least one of the other, if not more, is the vegetation plan, the vegetation underneath and around all the arrays. They do make a special vegetation that only grows so high, and you know, it's from what we can gather the best kind of covering for underneath in and around all the arrays. David, have you heard of? Are you familiar with what we're talking about?
Yeah, I just didn't want to. They'll use a low growth grass, typical, like they like to refer to it as a solar mix. So it's a slow growing grass. They will be required. Typically, it's in the operation and maintenance manual for the solar field, where they'll have a vegetation maintenance plan where they're required to go out there and cut the grass. The solar operator also needs to watch for the grass too, because they don't want the grass to grow higher than the lip of the panel, because it'll reduce their efficiency on the panel. So that is all included in the efficiency manual. You know, we try to, the roadways that we've shown, we do provide 20 feet of separation between the panels and the outer fence line. every community is obviously different when it comes to access of these. So on this one, we didn't show I'll call it a ring road around the whole outer perimeter. We kind of kept that roadway in the interior of the site.
It makes me a little nervous not having, say, down in the southeast corner there, or even the southwest corner. I see you have on the west side, you have the retention ponds. On the east side, there's really nothing over there, but I don't know how we would get firefighting apparatus down in that area if,
So
God forbid there was something to happen. And even up in the northeast, around the northeast where you were, I believe where Sue was pointing to before.
So would you find it acceptable if we added like a leg to get up to this north area and then maybe like a leg down to this corner?
Yeah. So Dave, my name is Dan Murphy. I'm the fire marshal. This is the first I've ever even heard of this plan or even seen this plan. So if you do that, what's the turnaround? Even in the middle where you have those T's?
Right.
Again, this is all new to me, this plan. So if you were to do that, what would be the turnarounds and stuff? Would it be T? Would it be, what would you do?
We'd make it a T turnaround down in that area. And we can look at adding that leg and then putting a T down in this area and putting a T up here.
For context, that T is 75 feet in length.
Jen, do you have a copy of all this that you could get over to us?
Yeah, I will. Just to let you know, Dan, this is the TRC meeting, and they're going to have the official public hearing meeting with the planning board on June 8th. So I probably would have given it to you on Tuesday with the rest of the planning board. But I can send it to you.
Yeah, but I know
that's
Dave
okay.
said that a fire department commented earlier, but I just, again, being probably almost 2 years now into it, and I know the chief's kind of new into it. I don't know who's commented, but I'm just, looking at something that I've never even put my eyes on before, so.
This started in this is a long time ago. It's been a long process. I want to say early 2019, maybe it started.
Yeah, it's years ago.
Yeah, so I was not the fire chief then, and Dan was not the marshal back then. So this plan does look familiar, but vaguely, and I'm sure I maybe saw it back then in early 19. But then I kind of forgot about it because it's been kind of hasn't really been talked about, or I haven't been involved in it at all since then. So, we're certainly willing to look and work with and give you our opinions and what our requirements and stuff like that. But I ask that, we have a little bit of time to do that. And Jen, if you said we're going to be getting this stuff probably Tuesday anyways, that certainly works for us, but.
Well, see, that's my question for you. I mean, would you be more comfortable with a couple more T's with a turnaround, or would you be more comfortable with like a ring road, a perimeter road? Chief, I guess for Dan. I know, because I think a couple of them we've done ring roads, and I understand every town's different, but I don't know how much reconfiguring it would take to make a ring road.
Right. Well, the more access, the better. But we're again, just looking at this, we need to know. I mean, I believe this is a 100-acre project. Obviously, the more access, the better, in general. But we can certainly take a look at it when we do get the plans and figure out how long the turnarounds are going to be. I think somebody just said 75 feet or something, but that's a hard question to answer as a definite without actually seeing the plans right in front of us and stuff.
Dave, what's the spacing between each solar panel row? Is it 12 feet or is it?
It ranges in the final design. Typically, they're between 13 and 14 feet.
Okay, all right. It's hard, you can't tell from.
Yeah, I've done quite a few solar sites and I've seen some with ring roads and some with like systems like this. I can definitely understand the southeast corner and even that north edge. The complication gets when the equipment's kind of in the middle of the site. That's where, once it's built, that's where people are going to be accessing it. So if you start putting roads in the middle, roads down the side, and roads all around the edging of it, you end up with a lot of roads around the solar site. So it creates a lot of roadway through the system, which we try to prevent just from an environmental and drainage perspective. But we can definitely work with the fire department to add, a few roadways to get down to those areas that are a little less accessible.
Oh, the other thing I just thought of, I don't know if Kelly or Rick or somebody too can comment, like the far right, what is that, the east side, those two corners. I know one of the last projects, it was the turning curve.
The turning radius. I was actually just going to mention that.
So I don't know, we just need to clarify if that's an adequate turning radius for all the corners as well for trucks or whatever the biggest equipment is that you bring in, if it was 18 feet, 12 feet. So we just need to get that clarified too. Yeah, Kelly.
Also, just for clarification, I was wondering over the Algonquin gas line, if that is to be used just for traversing, whether it be, I'm sure the gas maintenance vehicles would coordinate with their own company, but if it's fire trucks or ambulances or whatever, we just wanted to make sure that that wouldn't compromise the gas line underneath it. I know that something was submitted, all of the notes from Algonquin company about that would just have to be coordinated ahead of time to make sure there was no compromise to the pipeline within it, the easement.
Sure. Yeah, we can work with them on that, Kelly, and I understand the concern. The gas line, the trucks and vehicles, they're going to be traversing over that to get to the eastern area to do work over there. So that'll be, on their radar. So, and they're not going to want they're going to want the trucks to stay on those specific areas. And I've worked with a few gas lines and a few construction sites. A lot of times they make them put down those safety pads during construction. So I'd have to imagine if the construction vehicles, which are, some of them are pretty large vehicles during the initial construction, but we can bring that up to them post-construction if they have any concerns.
Okay, great. Yeah, just in case there was an emergency vehicle, they wouldn't necessarily have time to coordinate with the gas company, but so just to make sure that an emergency vehicle knows whether or not they can actually use that, depending on making sure that the gas line isn't compromised is all.
That's a good comment. We can coordinate that with them.
Great.
And I think the other thing is, before we approve the preliminary plan, you think you'll be able to get us something from Enbridge? Because I know it said that they need to, I think the only thing on their thing that applies to us is they need to a complete set of final plan drawings. But if we would like to have those approved before we go to final plan. So I don't know how long it takes to get a letter from them. The first bullet point.
Are you saying before final, Susan?
Well, I don't know if we should make sure you have approval from Enbridge that you can do those crossover roads before we approve the preliminary plan. Otherwise, you're gonna have to come back at final plan and adjust it. I just don't know how long it takes to get a response from them.
Enbridge has reviewed the proposed plan, and their input is where we're crossing. They've approved those locations, and any construction vehicles, any vehicles, any access has to be vetted for them before they go to the site. Largely, they just care about just maintaining access points and just coordinating for communication for that. They also want to see the more or less approval from the town regarding the project. So it's kind of like both sides. Enbridge wants to see the approval for the project, and the town wants to see the approval from Enbridge. So we can coordinate that further with them as far as emergency access and vehicles of that sort.
Jennifer, where do you think would be appropriate then to make sure we have something from Enbridge before, I mean, I want to do this before it gets to recording. So is it before?
Yeah, I think you're getting ahead of yourself though, because we're at preliminary plan and we're not at final yet.
But I didn't know if we needed to have it, if we should have
Before
their approval at preliminary plan stage, or if we can wait till final to get their.
I think that you can wait till final because because I as that organization, they probably want to know that they have that there's some sort of approval before they're going to look at it.
All right.
My concern though is if you were to change the roads and increase the road coverage, wouldn't that affect your impervious surface, and would you have to recalculate stormwater runoff and everything? And I'm just wondering if it is that big of a deal, maybe you want to have another TRC meeting instead of going to the planning board again, if that's better for you, or you I don't know how long it'll take you to.
We'd probably eliminate roads. Like I don't. Like
oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So okay,
we don't want to like these roads here.
I see.
Probably shift them so it's
It would equal out kind of.
That's why my thought was kind of what Susan was saying. Maybe it's better if we just add a leg and a leg. And the way we design these roads, they are made of porous material, so it's not a significant impact on the drainage. It's just for instance, if we were going to put a ring road around this whole section here, we'd probably eliminate these through roads up here, as an example. But it'd probably be best the way this is set up. It'd probably be best if we could just do a leg and a leg, if that's what the fire department's looking to get into these corner areas.
Whatever you guys come up with as a planning board, we'll just be looking for a letter from fire marshal or fire chief that signs off on whatever your roadway design is, because I know people will be asking about the safety issue of it. Done that before. Okay.
Yeah, we've done. And we can talk to the fire department on this too. We've done reinforced turf on sites before too, also. So that's an option we could look at.
Okay. Thank you.
David, this is Rosemary Eva from the planning board. I have a concern about the proposed lots that you have. Sorry. Why did you put them on the plan this way?
I'm not sure I understand the concern. The owners of the property wanted to maintain those residential buildings.
That wasn't the plan.
So in the master plan, something that kind of concerned me was that it said before, one of the master plan conditions said that an administrative subdivision to merge all the lots needed to be done before the preliminary plan. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, we revised that. That was revised.
It's part of the conditions?
Yeah, and when we did the decision, we did the revised for final plan.
I can't hear you, Sue.
She's muted. I think she's coming through your speaker.
Yeah. Sorry.
There. Oh, I was just saying, I think it was in the decision.
Yes.
Following the initial conditions that we did revise that to say it just needed to be, they needed to be merged before the final plan. Because I think that's how we usually do it, is once preliminary plan, before you come back for final plan, we would do the merging before we approve the final plan. Because you have to change the owner.
Yes.
You'll have the owner names change as well when you merge the lots. So that'll all need to be done.
I mean, technically they are doing merging. It's just not merging all into one. I mean, they're maintaining those residential lots in themselves.
That wasn't part of the master plan approval. Master plan approval was that all the residences were to be removed. To be raised, and the historical house was kind of up in the air, but let's see, I'm trying to think. It was on page 6 of the decision. is written in the master plan decision that the buildings were not to remain, because that creates multiple uses on a single lot, which is not allowed in our zoning. So those people can't continue to live there. That was not the conditions of the master plan approval. I don't know how it got lost in the translation. I'm trying to find the decision. I do have it somewhere here. Oh.
It might have been talked about in the meeting, but I saw the
Oh, it was discussed at length, yeah. Let's see, I'll find it. I got the decision.
I printed it out.
Okay. Well, there was discussion on page 6 about there wasn't a final determination had not been made on the historical house, but she did report that this was Ms. Milanofi. She did report that all the other buildings located on the 3 parcels would be raised. And that was clearly the discussion, and that clearly was the decision that was made from the beginning. So I don't know how that got lost in the translation, and the people that live in those houses are thinking that they're going to be able to stay and live there, but that wasn't what we agreed upon and voted on 2 years ago. So I don't know how you want to resolve this. I don't know how adamant they are about staying there. The only other thing you could do would be if you created a subdivision, if you had enough area. I don't know if you do.
We'll have to talk to the applicant, and I don't know if Nick wants to weigh in on that. I mean, the way we have it shown is those lots do conform to the zoning. So that is technically what we did was an administrative subdivision. We just move the lot lines around.
Make them R80.
I think the condition was that they all be merged. It literally says that in the condition for master plan.
No, I understand. No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying the applicant was directing that's what they wanted to do, was to maintain those. They didn't want to demolish them. So we'll have to talk to the applicant. And
well, yeah, the other point was that if you keep those other lots, you have to make sure your setback requirements are adequate for those lots. That was the other issue. If you keep those lots, you can't have the setback for the whole big parcel. You have to meet the setback requirements for each lot that I don't know if that would have impact where the solar is, given where the houses are.
not with the way we drew the subdivision. I understand the merging, but the way we drew the lots on this administrative subdivision, they work. But I understand the concern. We'd have to just talk to the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Jennifer, what do we do if like?
Yeah, we don't have the attorney. Yeah, we don't have the attorney here. I don't know.
I don't know how we can back
go on to the preliminary plan.
Yeah, that was a condition of master plan.
Of the master plan, yeah.
We're changing, the applicant changed their mind, so I don't know.
I'll have to ask our solicitor what that.
That's been the premise since day one, that there would be only one lot.
Right, that's how it was proposed to us. It was proposed that those houses were to stay. And that's why it was confusing. On some of the sheets, you had some of the houses may stay, some of the houses would be removed. You have the barns removed, the sheds removed, but on some of the sheet pages, you have they're staying and some you have they're going. And so this is definitely a legal issue, or whatever issue it is, it needs to be cleared up before we can go forward, I guess.
And this is misrepresentation from day one.
Rosemary, that's not necessary.
Yeah, I think that we will take the comments back and examine it. From what I recall, that there was some questions about the conditions of those houses and whether or not they were going to be essentially updated and repurposed. I can't imagine why anybody would want to, you know, eliminate houses in a town when all the regulations and dimensional regulations are met. So we'll take a look at that.
I guess we assumed that they were selling the property, so they would move elsewhere. I mean, that would be, I think that was probably the understanding. I mean, that's what I assumed. Maybe it was incorrect, but if they were selling their property to the solar people, they were selling all of the property, not part of it. And the only one that was in question, it was probably that we wanted to iron out before we got to preliminary plan public hearing, was the historical house, because there was debate that it wasn't determined historically significant, but there were some people that wanted to keep it. And we've been down this road before, so we wanted to get that ironed out too before we go before the planning board. Yeah, that's a big issue.
It's an issue. I would say that the scope of the issue is not, you know, those houses are existing and they're not really being manipulated or adjusted based on this proposal. So,
No, it says the decision, but the master plan decision says the houses will be raised. RAZED means.
Well, it at least says that all the lots are merged.
right.
At least it does say that.
That presents an issue with the number of uses. So we'll take that and discuss it with the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to make a point that the proposed solar main site entrance is different from the existing, we'll call the main houses along the front. So the proposal is to keep it separate. I mean, a thing that we could probably recommend is additional buffering along that entrance access, or something to spruce up that separation. But I think a key component is that, you know, there's a divide between the residential use, which is a business today, really. There's a kennel that operates out of it, to the proposed solar in the back. The houses to the south, there's no proposed work there. We don't intend to touch them, but we're talking with the applicant and discuss, you know, how we go from here.
Mr. Guardia, are you attorney for Dupree, or are you attorney for the solar people?
I'm an attorney for the applicant. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I will definitely talk to the solicitor about this as well.
Oh, the other thing on,
Are you gonna do one check for both properties?
Sorry, they're in town hall.
yeah, that's background noise. I think, oh, the other question I had was, I noticed that you did a wetland flagging again, March 3rd of 2020. I don't know if that was submitted, a letter of the flaggings was submitted. I don't know if the master plan had the original one, but then you updated it. We would need a copy of the one from March of 2020. I don't know if that was submitted, Jennifer.
I'm not sure. Are you talking about a resubmission to DEM? Or
Yeah, it's noted on sheet 3 that the wetlands were flagged March 3rd of 2020. But I don't have a copy of the report. I don't know if Jennifer, if you have that in the file. If not, we should have that.
there is probably no report presented. It was just us going in the field and reflagging the wetlands. Part of the back and forth with DEM is they go out, they look at the wetland flags,
Yes.
they'll give us comments. We go back out, we'll rehang flags based on their comments, but there's no formal report that's created. So the flags that you see on the plans that we submitted represent those wetland flags that were put in the field in March.
Right, isn't it? You put out the the flags and then DEM approves.
Verifies them. right?
Correct. Yeah. Well, in this case, we have an open wetlands application with them. So they're going out to the site and looking at what we're doing on the site. So they verify what we're putting out in the field, basically. Every time we submit a review, they go out in the field and they look at it.
I'm just trying to figure out, because normally they submit a wetlands verification letter as part of the,
There's two separate applications with DM, Susan. There's a wetland verification, which is a separate application from a preliminary determination.
right,
Part of the preliminary determination, they'll go out and look at the flags. When we get the approval back from them for this project, it's, in essence, they've gone out, they've looked at our flags, they're in agreement with what we're showing on the plans. It's a different permit that we get from,
okay. But that's what's pending from them. right?
that's correct.
Okay, all right. And then the other thing I had about that was the wetland restoration area. Said it was supposed to be completed by May 15th. Do we have, or what, has that been verified, or who verifies that? I don't know where you are in the process.
So that's in process of being done. They've had some ordering supply issues, getting some of the plants, but they're out there now currently working on that.
Okay.
DM is involved in that with every step. So DM has to go out there and they have to sign off on the restoration that's done out there. DEM won't release the wetlands approval to us, even if we satisfy the engineer and the biologist comments. The wetlands department won't issue that permit until that restoration has been signed off by another department, DEM. So that's in process, and they'll verify and check it.
All right, so I think we would need a letter or a permit or something before we approve the preliminary plan. I assume you'd have it.
We will get a DEM preliminary determination approval. We're expecting to get that in a few weeks, most likely not before that June meeting. In combination with that, we'll more than likely get some type of documentation that restoration was done in compliance with the approved plan.
Okay, I just know we should have that. Okay. Thank you.
So Kelly, I was wondering if you could go through the comments for steer, or if everything was are acknowledged or fixed.
Yeah, so like David mentioned, they were pretty much just either clarification comments or just simple reconciliation between the plans and the documents. So it seems like they'd all be pretty easy to address, as they mentioned they would do anyway, so.
And so Rick, do you have any comments about from
a couple of questions
Mhm.
in the I might have others later on, but on the sub watershed for the 1.2 inch peak flow, it's my understanding, but maybe I'm wrong, that is technically no new impervious area going to be done. Why is the 1 year, 10 year, and 100 year, if I remember correctly, are fine for the pre-post, but the 1.2 peak flow, and I'm not familiar with what the 1.2 represents, but why is the post significantly higher than the pre?
Rick, that's usually basis on the change of cover type for development, precondition of woods to post condition of grass. But in both cases, it's pervious material that allows water to infiltrate. But in general, this site is not producing large impervious areas.
Okay. What is the end result? And I can't see who's speaking on my computer, but is this?
Sorry, Joe Duhamel from Dupree. Sorry, Rick.
Did you say David is the one talking?
Joe Duhamel.
Oh, Joe. Okay, Joe. Thank you, Joe. What is the end result of the post being a total of 0.60, which isn't quite double, but close to double of the 0.34, CFS for the pre on the 1.2 peak flow? What's this? end result of that?
The end result is the volume of water, that the amount of water will infiltrate into the grass areas and be directed into the ponds. That water will over time get back into the subsurface soil as it does in the precondition.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, it won't be leaving the site at that increased rate. It'll simply be absorbed into the soil somewhere else, but it might be leaving particular areas faster, but the volume won't increase off-site. Am I understanding that correctly?
The flow, yeah, the flow and volume, yes, yes.
Okay, so it won't be impacting any neighbors or roads, et cetera. Is that a fair statement?
It will not be, no.
Thank you for that. And another quick question is, the DEM is notified on land ownership changes. Would the town also be, I mean, according to your O&M, for stormwater, et cetera, is the town going to be notified or only DEM?
We can, Rick, this is Dave Russo with the Preet. So typically what happens with solar fields is right now the permit's going through DEM. When you go through DEM, the owners of record are the applicant. When this goes to construction, typically that ownership changes. So what we see a lot of times is at some point prior to construction or right when it's about to start, there's an application that goes to DEM, which is a change in ownership application, where we'll notify DEM that the ownership has changed. If the town would like us to submit a copy of that, we wouldn't have an issue doing that.
It would, thank you, Dave. It would probably be helpful in the event that the stormwater areas are not maintained. In theory, the town would be notified anyways in the, recorded deeds, but it would be nice if, for instance, the planning department was notified. At least it helps keep things known of who owns what on a project of this size.
We agree.
Dave, that would also pop up on the building permit, right? In the paperwork.
Good point. Yep.
But I guess what I would be saying, Joe or Dave, is that 5 years down the road, somebody buys it, and then somebody complains that the stormwater, BMPs are not being cared.
Yes.
Then we'd at least be able to say, okay, who does this? Who owns it?
If I may, Joe Duhamel again. The O&M, it's a stormwater operations and maintenance report. It's in the eyes of DEM, it's a legal binding agreement that outlines the way the site is maintained in the post-construction, once it's signed off, post-construction instance where we provide checklists and maintenance recommendations like the grass heights and such. That's something that's commonly or can be recorded as part of it. And there's a change of ownership document inside of it that as site develops or maybe potentially change hands, it's something in there that, that's updated as well.
Okay, thank you. But does that mean that, okay, you will be notifying the town? Can you make that part of the O&M that if ownership changes at any point, besides DEM, the town is also notified through the planning department?
We can do that, yes.
We could put language in the O&M, right?
Okay, thank you for that. And on page, it's the 11 of the document, but page 9 on the stormwater O&M, you have and I'm not finding fault with it, but I'm just curious. It said if inspections are performed by outside entity, it'll be $46,614 per year.
That is a figure that is roughly determined based on knowledge of solar sites and just stormwater maintenance. That is an estimate. It certainly could be up to interpretation based on the site, but based on the area that we have to maintain, that's about what we're thinking for now.
Okay, and but the maintenance cost of, again, some of this is just to see if there's a typo in there. But the 51 acres of detention structures is only going to cost, roughly 30% of that. The number seems out of whack, that maintenance costs about 14,000 a year and inspections cost $46,000 a year. I'm not disagreeing at this point, but I just find it a little.
I see what you're, yes, that is, the maintenance cost is the, let's say the 14,000 per year. That seems to be a typo in the O&M. Would be 51 acres times $269 per acre. That would be the value.
Right, and I'm not disagreeing at this stage. I just, when you look at these numbers and you review them, it just seemed a little odd that inspection would be, basically 3 times the cost of maintenance.
Understood. We can clarify and update it.
It doesn't hurt the town that you're expecting it to be $46,000 a year, but if there's any kind of surety required, et cetera, to the tune of $46,000 a year, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But that's going to be a whopper of a surety if it's 46 grand a year.
Okay, we'll look into it. We'll clarify, revise if need be.
Without trying to be too polite, it's just a courtesy to you and to the applicant that maybe there's something incorrect on that.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Thank you, Dave and Joe, and thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Rick.
I had one last question or comment on DEM related. I know back when we did this, I think you had that the fence was 8 inches off the ground for passing of critters. We've learned since then that that's not a DEM requirement. So I just didn't know if your client wanted to adjust that at all. We were under the impression then that that's what DEM required, but it's not.
That's the first I've heard that.
Yeah, so if you wanted to have it hugged lower to the ground, you can just have it reflect on the plan.
We recently responded, or we revised our detail on our plan. The DEM biologist has recommended that we show a 6-inch gap underneath the fence line. So that is something that we would have on this proposed site.
6 inch, okay. Yeah, I think you had 8 inch, so just if you can change that notation. Okay.
So we had, I've heard that that's good for smaller wildlife. We had another applicant who ended up wanting to have goats in the solar farm area and ended up having to change his plan to put the fence down to flush to the ground. So that's probably why Susan is mentioning.
To keep the goats in?
Yes, to keep the goats in.
Oh, to keep the coyotes out.
Oh yeah, there you go. the goats, I don't know if they could get.
I think it was to keep the predators out if they're going to have goats or sheep in there. So yeah, so I know we were just misinformed the first go around. So I just thought I'd pass that on if you guys, depending on how you guys wanted to run your fence. So. I did have another question. I don't know if anybody else has questions. I have a lot of questions always, but on the last sheet, it has how you have the interconnection, I guess, coming down. I don't know, with Fish or Bulgar Marsh or all that. I don't know, is there going to be work to the roads that we need to be aware of, or is that all done outside of the asphalt surface?
So typically that type of work, my experience with offsite interconnection, it would run through, a lot of that is state roadway work.
Yeah.
So a lot of that would go through the DOT. Any town roads or any improvements on the town road would have to go through the town council. So that's in my experience, it's a whole nother process that they'd have to go through for the offsite interconnection.
All right, let's look at that. I don't know, are they all state roads? I guess Rick could address that then. I just wanted to give a heads up to figure that out if we're, yeah, because I didn't know if you dug the road up or.
Brayton Road is a town road,
Okay,
and then it goes into Bugglemash Road,
Bugglemash.
excuse me. And then I don't know the distances, but then back to Fish Road, that's a town road.
Fish is a state road.
Is it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bulgar Marsh, I don't know, Rick probably knows if that's state, but if Brayton is the town road.
Yes, yes, Susan, Brayton Road is town, and
Okay,
Bugamash Route 177 is state, and Fish Road is state.
all right. So Jennifer, do we need some kind of sign off from DOT and I guess DPW for, I mean, so you do it under the roadway or along the roadway or whatever?
This is all underground being proposed offsite. That is it's an entire separate process.
Yeah, that's not.
For design. It's a big lift. It's a lot of work that goes into that offsite. So there'd be a lot more detailed plans. A lot of times what we see is, you'll see this instance, because it's in the roadway, it's a little easier. But you're still gonna have to go to DOT for separate permit, town council for the Brayton Road section. And obviously if they dig up the roads, there's gonna be improvements that are gonna be needed.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if they're town roads, I don't know if we need to include that as a surety to get sureties for that. That roadway improvement that's a town road is my question.
I think what your approval as the planning board is a curb cut onto the property off a town road. The other information would probably be through Rick as a separate.
You don't think we need to collect a surety for that?
Yeah. Well, I think that's between the town, not the planning board.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
Do you agree, Rick?
Yes, the curb cut would be through DPW, and any excavation that takes place within the right of way of Brayton Road would need to be reviewed by DPW. Who would be performing the work? Does it work, Joe or Dave, that National Grid does the work, or National Grid simply oversees the applicant doing the work?
Typically my experience is National Grid will oversee a consultant that's within their database that they've approved to do their work type thing. I've seen most of the time that's how it occurs. But National Grid would be completing all the inspections, and it'd be, whatever consultant or contractor does that would have to be on their approved list of contractors.
Right, and so what we would do as DPW is work with the contractor, you and National Grid, to make sure not that the installation is correct. It's simply that the road and right of way was put back to as good or better condition under the, whatever the requirements are in the town ordinance. So thank you.
Right. Okay. And then my other question about that electric, so when you come onto the property, I know like with these solar things, you always have like multiple electric poles. Where are you proposing those? Are those going to be on the site, or are you planning those along Brayton Road? Or if there's a way to keep them on the site?
They would be on the site. They haven't finished that design yet, but they would be on the site. That's National Grid typically trails on these designs with their final electric design. And that has to do with a lot of the sequence of all this, getting your town approval, payments to National Grid for that final design, but National Grid would complete that final design.
Okay. All right. as we did on a couple of the solars. I don't know, is the building official still on? Because my question, I think, was for him. On the other applications, we had Solar Design Associates review the, I guess, the electrical solar, I guess, stuff. And I don't know if that was kind of overkill, if that should be done at the construction phase rather than at the planning stage, but we had a peer review done of, I guess, the whole solar electrical design. I don't know, is the building official still around?
I believe he is. He's listed as an attendee.
Yeah, so I don't know if what his sense of direction would be on that, because otherwise we did it at the planning board stage, but after we did it, I kind of looked at that, maybe that's more construction related, that we don't need to do that review.
Not at this point. I would wait until they actually submit for structural work.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That helps. Okay.
All right.
To hog everything. I just have lots of questions. Maybe somebody else has questions. Otherwise, I have fewer comments, but somebody else could go.
Yeah, does anyone else have any questions? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up soon. I'll take a.
All right, I have more. Can I ask more?
You do, yeah. Well, I think it's better that you ask now rather than.
That's what I'm trying to do.
The planning board, that's what it's for.
That's why I'm
right?
trying to get all these questions out now, so you know what I'm going to ask if we go to the planning board, and so you can answer them or change things. So one of the things I noticed was it said originally the thing was like a 21 kilowatt, then it went down to, I think at the end of it, it said it was 14 kilowatts when they did reductions, but now you're back up to 18. So is that, but even though you've decreased your total lot coverage, does that mean that it's just they're more efficient panels? I'm just trying to figure out how you got from 14 to 18 kilowatts.
With the megawatts, it's always difficult because, and I think the 14 might have been the AC, and I think the 18 was the DC. So you do get that change also.
Okay.
But with the megawatts, it's always difficult because, especially with this project, it's taken so long. The panel efficiencies have increased. So the final actual megawatt, what it puts out is always subject to change depending on what panels are available.
Okay.
It could go up or down depending on what panels are available, etc. So really we like to focus on the footprint more than what panels go in there.
Right. Yeah, I just wanted clarification on that because that was a big shape. That was a big difference in number. Okay. So the other things that we've required that I don't know, Jennifer, you can answer or Dave, if it's been submitted is at the preliminary plan, a solar, I think it's an operation and maintenance plan, an emergency response plan, a decommission plan, including the dollar, whatever the amount is to decommission the project. That means to remove all the solar panels and return the site to its previous, like, smooth ground state, and then that would need to be bonded. I guess there's discussion about a habitat enhancement plan. I don't know if that needs to be bonded. Let's see, and then that's where we talked about with the houses being gone, a restoration plan for the residential sites, whether that would be bonded. There was also a discussion about an archaeological survey after removal of the older house on lot 102. And then it was just a matter of either from Rick or Steer to know if they were going to request an infrastructure surety of some sort for like all the detention ponds. And I don't know if we need anything more from Algonquin Gas as far as the easement agreement, or if the fact that that easement's already in place, if that's adequate. I don't know. So I know we have a lot of, at the preliminary plan stage, we like to get all our legal documents lined up. So final plan is just a very quick and smooth procedure. So I don't know. I just can't remember. I saved a lot of the.
They did provide an operational maintenance plan for stormwater management, but I think you mean like a legal document that can be recorded. That's a more.
Right. Yeah, because Yeah, these were things that were discussed at master plan. And I think I recall them saying that they would be submitted at preliminary plan. I didn't save all my papers or else they just were never submitted. I just didn't know if the office, if you guys had copies of them. Otherwise, we will need those kinds of items prior to approval. So I want to give you a heads up, those things that have to be done. And what typically we do is with the sureties, like for the decommissioning plan, and if we do an infrastructure plan for the, I don't know what, for the detention ponds, if it would be your engineers work up a proposal, and then we have steer DPW review it. And then that, you know, once we have an agreement that the planning board approves it, but you do the initial footwork on the proposals for those.
Is that just 2 points of clarification? Is that for maintenance of the ponds you're speaking about? So if the ponds weren't maintained, there's a surety that the town could go maintain them?
Well, that's what I'm trying to think of, if that's what we do. I don't know if Rick, that's part of my question was for Rick. You know, I don't know if because it's private property, I don't know if Jennifer or Rick, you want a construction surety, or if it would just be, I think we do operation maintenance. I think we did on Cook Farm, like a 2-year. And we also did we do a landscape?
No, so you, sometimes you do landscaping surety.
For a year, I think it was.
Landscaping for a few years. The stormwater is, I think, private property. It would only be a surety if it was a public infrastructure. I would like to hear what Rick thinks about that.
Right.
My input would be from DPW that as long as there's enough, not that we expect it, but as long as there's enough teeth in whatever ordinance there is, that the not the homeowner, but the property owner actually has to pay. It's clearly written that they have to, but what can the town actually do to collect the money? I would assume they put a lien on the property, that's understood, but how do they actually collect it? But I'm not saying there's a need for a surety, because it is private property, as long as there's assurances that the maintenance would be done, and if it isn't, there's a reasonable way for the town to collect the money that they've expended to maintain them.
Right. Because I'm looking at those three or four detention pond, or, you know, areas that are the ones that abut the most densely the housing areas. I don't know how big those are. They look like they could be big, and if they overflowed into the neighboring properties, I don't know if that, I can't tell distance wise what we're dealing with here to know if that's an issue or not. That's why either steer or DPW could comment on that. They think it warranted some kind of, you know, safety valve for the town.
We could take a look at the distances too. I can't pull the plans up right now and scale them, but we can definitely take a look at the proximity of the proposed detention basins.
Yeah, I think it would just be helpful to probably all of us on the planning board just to know, you know, and then however we typically work out stormwater agreements. I think the town has some standard forms, don't we, Jennifer? I think in the past we've done some standard forms for operation maintenance of stormwater.
Well, not standard forms, but I have samples.
Oh, no, but samples, yeah, that we've used in the past.
Sure.
So you don't have to create your own. And then, yeah, but the emergency response plan, I suppose that would be coordinated with the fire department, you know, what they're looking for.
Dupree, Susan and Jennifer, Dupree has submitted a stormwater system O&M plan.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's like a 28-page document, and it does have, you know, a generic form in there for the town, who's going to maintain it and their successors and assigns. And if they don't do it, the town can do it. I simply mention that because the surety was mentioned. As long as there's enough teeth, I'm not recommending a surety, as long as there's enough teeth to make sure that the town would get paid if they don't do the stormwater maintenance. And there really won't be a lot of inspection on the town's part.
Right,
It's private property.
right.
Yeah, I think you're raising some great questions that your solicitor will be readily capable of responding to in terms of the town's ability to lien, which becomes, these types of facilities have financing agreements, et cetera. If that event ever took place, it would be quickly addressed as normally these operate collectively amongst several solar facilities, and with the financing agreements and so forth. And the process would be your solicitor issuing, recording a lien, and notifying anybody that comes up on title as having an interest, and that presents a real problem to the operator of the facility. So I wouldn't anticipate an issue like that.
Thank you.
All right.
So part of the master plan approval, the legal documents that are required for reviewing are a decommissioning plan as well to be recorded. That will probably need a surety, the decommissioning, and a reforestation plan. So that might be part of a decommissioning plan. So you probably want to submit what you think a decommissioning bond would be, and we would review it. So I don't believe that has been applied for or given to me.
That decommissioning bond wouldn't hold up, but we can put one together, an estimate. We've done those in the past. We can submit that, but that wouldn't hold up the preliminary, correct? That's something that would just have to be done prior to final recording.
No, I think that the planning board would want to decide on the surety, at least the legal language of the surety, before they're going to give approval. I think Susan's shaking her head yes.
Right, yeah, we usually like to get all of the legal documents done at preliminary plan approval, so that they get submitted and reviewed by our solicitor, and then we approve them, so that really the final plan is a very simple process, that we have all the documents we need, we have the plans that we need.
All right, we'll have to put that together. We didn't put that together yet because the way it's worded, it seems like it wasn't required till later in the stages, but we can work on doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if there's no one else with any questions, we have a motion to adjourn. Anybody on the board?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chief. You gonna second, Rick?
No, I'll vote to adjourn when everybody's ready.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, great.